Will met with Beyond Stillness for 7 weeks to articulate and publicly share his story of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope. To learn more about our programs and services, or to sponsor a guest on their story crafting journey, please visit us at www.beyondstillness.org. This week on Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, we welcome guest Will Schmierer. In December of 2019, a leg wound led to an unexpected diagnosis, AFib. Days later, a stroke left his entire right side paralyzed. Then came another blow, multiple sclerosis, MS. At that point, Will was 37 and weighed 530 pounds. Recovery was slow, but he has always been one to do things 1,000%, and so goes his recovery. A book on nasal breathing changed his outlook and life. He became a biker, then runner, and ultimately a resource for other survivors. Now, as the founder of Survivor Science, Will is dedicated to sharing his journey and empowering others to reclaim their strength and resilience. Thank you for joining us for Part 1, Will Schmierer's story.
Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke. Stroke offers a powerful, life-changing shift in perspective. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. Beyond Stillness offers a moment of pause for storytelling and reflection. Ultimately, we create a welcoming environment that reveres the moment beyond stroke's paralysis. Still moments unite humanity and divinity. I'm your host, Molly Bucola. As we begin today, we take a moment of pause, a moment to honor the wisdom that has emerged through recovery. And we give thanks. Now, Will Schmierer's story.
In 2019, a leg wound kept growing. After a year and a half of bandages, I finally went to wound care where I was diagnosed with a venous ulcer. During a follow-up, a nurse panicked. My resting heart rate was over 90. Holy shit, you need to go to the hospital now. At 530 pounds, I knew something was wrong, but didn't realize how serious it really was. My wife drove me to the hospital thinking a few blood pressure pills would fix it, as they had before. The hospital was dingy and quiet, and I hoped to be home before Christmas. A nurse took my vitals. Holy shit! I noticed the pattern. I had AFib. Soon, a whole team surrounded me, admitting me into the hospital for the weekend. Let's restore my heart to rhythm on Monday, since Sundays aren't typically surgery days for that procedure. It's almost Christmas, we'll be out on Christmas Eve. Sunday morning, I woke up in the hospital and shuffled to the restroom. At 6'8" and 530 pounds at the time, I was known for my strength, yet something felt off. I dismissed it as my numb leg, unaware it was a clear sign of a stroke. My wife noticed the drooping face after she came back from lunch with the kids to return to the hospital. My daughter caught my slurred speech, but I brushed it off as pinched nerves, and even the doctors didn't suspect a stroke. Hours later, When the symptoms persisted, tests were run, but at my size, the MRI couldn't accommodate me. My stroke went undetected for over 24 hours. They attempted to shock my heart back into rhythm as planned on that Monday. In preparation for surgery, they indeed confirmed and found the clot. I had had a stroke. Panic ensued. They decided not to shock my heart into rhythm, but instead quickly rolled my bed to the stroke floor. It was there I realized this would be no quick and easy recovery. The doctors painted a sobering picture of the long road ahead. One doctor, known for being direct, cautioned me that the recovery process would span for several years. At the time, his lack of empathy frustrated me. In hindsight, he was 100% correct. They monitored me closely in the hospital for the next week. I was pissed. I loved Christmas at home. My family had come down. I was excited to spend our first Christmas in Florida as we had returned after a 7-year hiatus. Christmas came and went. Reality set in when they proposed a bedpan instead of the bathroom. To say that was humbling was a mild understatement. How long was this going to last, I wondered. Really? I can't even get up and go to the bathroom myself? My wife and kids spent as much time in the hospital as they could. I felt guilty that I couldn't help shuttle the kids and take care of my fatherly duties. When the team transferred me to Brooks Rehabilitation here in Jacksonville, Florida, I was ready. I'm a former athlete. I knew I was going to have to put in the work to improve. I was glad there was a plan in place and was ambitious to tackle the road ahead. Sometimes my naivete is my strength. In this case, it was. I threw myself into rigorous activities and exercises, including strength and mobility, with relentless determination. Therapists would wrap my hand to the handbike, and I wrestled the gait belt constantly because they needed to secure my 530-pound frame. My entire right side, both arm, foot, leg, hand, were paralyzed. I was confined to a wheelchair. When my wife brought my computer to the hospital, I realized I would in no way be able to move my fingers. I was concerned, but I assumed I would get my strength back fairly quickly if I put in the hard work. Same thing with dexterity. Give it a week, I'll be good to go. In OT, they hooked an electric stimulation machine up to my fingers, forearm, elbow, bicep, shoulder, etc. From what I could tell, nothing was happening. Then they placed putty in my right hand and asked me to squeeze it. I watched the putty just sit in my palm as my brain was sending signals to my fingers. It just sat there. How was I going to work? Thankfully, after research, I realized my company offered 10 weeks of short-term disability. This was my new deadline. In speech therapy, they gave me an IOP machine that had a tongue depressor to help strengthen my tongue muscles to help me with my speech. They challenged me to repeat words while using it. I bought one after extensive research for home. My wife and sister supported me as best they could while managing their own lives. When I returned home, we adjusted to the challenges and made detailed plans for recovery, focusing on adaptive strategies and long-term goals. A week later, the morning after the Super Bowl, I tried to speak, but the words were jumbled. Nothing sounded normal. My speech had digressed. We rushed back to the hospital, fearing another stroke. It wasn't until after about a month of tests and uncertainty I sat in the doctor's office and he finally announced the findings. You have multiple sclerosis, or better known as MS. Back in the inpatient rehab I go for another month. I often equate this period of time to being hit with a baseball bat in the stomach, getting up only to be struck again. This marked the start of my journey to rebuild not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. This double hit somehow sparked a newfound resilience that remains today. My whole life I've been unstoppable. I do things 1,000%. I had 1,000% fun in high school, 1,000% fun in college. I gave 1,000% as an athlete. As an adult, I've devoted much of my life to my family and my work, 1,000%. Some say it's not healthy, but you know how much diligence I gave to inpatient therapy? 1,000%. Bring it. I was excited to go back to Brooks in February 2020. When I left the first time, I was still in a wheelchair. The second time around, my hand had slowly begun to open up for a bit. I remember the day in the old hospital hallway. I placed it on the walker. The therapist strapped me with the gait belt as always, harnesses, and tried to stand out of the way. I'm not sure how they can help a man of my size with a gait belt and harnesses, but I leveraged my weight to get out of the wheelchair. I rocked my body back and forth, up and down. It felt good to make it to standing up. I stood up and I balanced. It was a wobbly balance, but I balanced. Finally, I centered, then focused intensely on my right hand, and then my right foot. I witnessed the whole leg trying to shuffle forward. The therapist cheered me on and wanted me to bend my knee. Bend. Got it. They wanted me to lift. I did. Lift. Flop. Full on, dead fish, flip, flop. But it was something. I was exhausted. Shaking. I have made it this far. 1,000%. I wanted to keep going. There were gait belts, harnesses, and lots of pulling, shoving, and shifting. Shuffle, lift, flop. Shuffle, lift, flop. Shuffle, lift, flop. 50 steps down the hall. My right side was affected by the stroke, and the entire left side of my body by the MS. I was going to conquer this and make the most of rehab. I knew that I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity this time. I was doing the drag, shuffle, dead fish, flop. I was excited about inpatient therapy. It gave me structure, a challenge, and a way forward. Outpatient therapy was good too, at least while it was frequent. But those appointments slowed down over time. I was left with more time to think. Is this it? Am I actually getting better, or am I just fooling myself? That first year, I spent a lot of time in my own head. I felt alone, not because people didn't care. My family, friends, they were there, but no one really got it. No one knew what it felt like to wake up in a body that just didn't feel like mine anymore. It's a very strange feeling to one day be seemingly normal and the next day be completely paralyzed. So I buried myself in work. If I stayed busy enough, I didn't have to think about the stroke. I didn't have to think about the MS. Like everyone during the pandemic, I burned through ridiculous amounts of TV. I read books. I started podcasts. Not because I had some big plan, but because I needed to practice talking, telling my story over and over to friends who asked, what happened? It was exhausting, so I figured, screw it. I'll just record it once a week and send them a link. But if I'm being real, there were a lot of days I was just down. Work was an escape. So was my family. But at night when it was just me, that's when the thoughts crept in. I remember one night in particular. I was laying in bed, staring up at nothing. The room was dim except for the glow of the TV on mute. I could hear my wife from the other room watching something, probably a crime show or some home renovation nonsense. The sheets were a mess because I couldn't get comfortable. My legs still didn't work right. My hand was weak. I kept flexing my fingers, hoping something would feel normal. Nothing. It didn't. This is my life now. I exhaled slow. I could feel my heart pounding, maybe from frustration, maybe from just laying there, too aware of everything. I thought about all the things I couldn't do anymore. I thought about how, if something happened to one of my kids in the other room, I wouldn't be able to get up fast enough to help, or at all. That messed with me the most. I wanted to fix it. But how do you fix something when you don't even know where to start? So I started reading. I scoured bookstores, libraries, anybody and everywhere anybody would take me. I spent hours on Amazon looking for anything about stroke recovery, young stroke survivors, people that actually rebuilt their lives. I didn't want sob stories. I wanted to find someone who had beaten the odds, someone who had figured this out. I didn't know it yet, but I was already starting to figure it out too. I usually came up short, but one summer day in 2022, I came across the book that wasn't specifically directed towards survivors, but it felt like it was written for me. I finally had read Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor, and it opened my eyes to the power of breathing. So simple. It's a foundational tool that has been there all along. It's accessible, effective, and it can be done without needing mobility. A unique advantage for stroke survivors. That book changed my outlook and my life. Then and today, I try to do a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes of breathing exercises 3 or 4 times a day. It doesn't always happen that way. Some days are better than others. I almost always begin with nasal unblocking exercises. I learned that from Patrick McGowan of Oxygen Advantage, where you pinch your nose, hold it for 30 to 60 seconds, release, and breathe in and out as you do a few times until the nose is unblocked. It helps unblock your nose. It's a very natural remedy, and it works well. I suggest checking out YouTube to find a video if you need some more clarification. Once I can actually breathe, I move back into simple breath holds. Exhaling gently and holding for a few seconds to build CO2 tolerance and improve oxygen efficiency. I like to practice 5 minutes of box breathing. Inhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, rinse and repeat. Box breathing. There's a lot of free apps. Definitely worth a try. Do it for 5 to 6 minutes. Lastly, I finish with alternate nasal breathing to balance my system and keep my airflow smooth. It's a simple routine that helps me stay consistent. I reset when I need to, and wind down at the end of the day. It really seems silly. Believe me, I thought the same thing too, but it has dramatically improved my life. I look back and I wish I had found the book Breath sooner. Learning how to control my breath helped me manage the emotional side of recovery as well. It improved my focus. And those of us with brain injury all need all the help we can get when it comes to focus. As I practice my breathing exercises each and every day, morning, midday, and evening, I started to see improvement in my strength and my mobility and my overall health. It fundamentally shifted how I approached recovery. Breathe. It's so simple for me, but it was the piece that unlocked every other part of my recovery. It fundamentally shifted how I approach life. I started using the Peloton, riding so often that I had blisters on my ass. 1,000%. I wanted to keep moving, but I couldn't sit on the Peloton, so I tried to run. I continued breathing exercises. I continued running. I was proud of myself and felt like I was figuring it out. At first, I pushed myself to run down the street, around the cul-de-sac. Then I set myself up for a half mile, then 3/4 of a mile, then 1 mile, then 2 miles, eventually all the way up to 200 miles a week. A little intense, but 1,000%. I was proud of myself. I didn't have it all figured out, but I was moving in the right direction. I began documenting my runs on the Strava app. I then started posting pictures and milestones on social media, starting with TikTok and eventually moving back to Facebook and Instagram and all the other platforms. I was proud of myself. I wanted to show people what a lot of hard work could do. I was a 530-pound man who had a stroke and lives with MS, all at the age of 37. I get up and I try to better myself each and every day now. Not only was I posting for me, but I was posting for the past me, the one who was looking for inspiration only to find sob stories. The posts were directed towards stroke survivors who were ready to do the work. They were for the people living with MS, for the big and tall people out there. I was getting up every day to breathe and run because I could, and I wanted to keep being able to do so. 1,000%. I was posting on social media to show what a lot of hard work could do. And although I did not take pictures in the beginning, you can see the progression if you look back over the years. Before my stroke, I wrote and designed and developed blogs. I hosted podcasts outside of work as a full-time web agency developer. But this felt like a calling. I lived and breathed the content and began connecting with other survivors who were sharing similar experiences and a need for motivation and community. I was sharing hope and hopefully inspiring others to do so as well, hoping to find my people. I was hesitant to share my journey at first for a number of reasons, mostly because of shame, because I was 530 pounds. And when I started sharing, I was much less weight. I was down at least to 400, but I was still a big boy. It was exciting, purposeful, but overwhelming. Recovery often feels like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And when I regressed, it was public. Holding myself accountable and being vulnerable carries an emotional weight, and I often doubt myself. But that vulnerability and motivation was what I needed to see early on, so I continue to pledge that now. And something shifted when I started sharing. Other people started reaching out and sharing too. I don't have an exact quote, but I can tell you numerous people over the years have reached out to me saying how they were inspired by my journey and got started trying to figure it out themselves. Going from how to walk, to how to run, to how to get better, to how to improve. Asking questions, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I always share the journey because not everything is going to work for everybody. I had a friend locally who had a stroke, who I met at an outpatient, that has often inspired me, and vice versa. She and I go back and forth in our monthly in-person meetup. What we're doing, what we're trying, what we're learning. For the last 5 years, and we couldn't be more different. I'm now in my 40s, and she's in her 70s. Almost twice my age. But each of us try to get better each and every day, each and every month. I saw how unique each story was, including mine. That realization showed me the importance of sharing my story to advocate for stroke survivors, helping me to find a purpose. As support grew, I felt driven to share more, knowing no one else could advocate for stroke survivors like I could. My background in tech and personal experience with MS and stroke put me in a unique position to create space for survivors and to share stories and learn from each other. The recovery resource world is chaotic and scattered, with no centralized hub for stroke survivors to find support, information, or inspiration. Podcasting became a new way of filling that gap. The same could be said for survivor science. I just wanted to start to document and share things that worked for me and how I went about things. It's a jumping off point. It's giving a sense of direction and help to others. It's taking what I went through and learned and just sharing my own journey, and hopefully, in turn, helping others figure out their journey. Again, not every episode of the podcast is a home run, and not every blog post on survivor science is a home run, but the cumulative impact of sharing and connecting is undeniable. Whether through a podcast, blog, social media, sharing journeys creates ripples of change. Through this process, I gained firsthand insight into the relentless challenges that people face when it comes to stroke recovery, like getting into breathwork, meditation, and even running, relearning how to drive, how to be confident, how to take back control after seemingly losing control of a lot of aspects of my life from personal to professional. But I continuously work hard, and I don't want to be another statistic. I've experienced the harsh realities of the recovery challenges. The isolation, the depression, the unkindness the world shows in vulnerable moments. All of those. Running a business and figuring out how to go back to work, which is easier said than done, even when you work remote. But now, going back in person, how do you feel confident and assertive, especially after stroke and being diagnosed with MS? Again, every day is different. These things are tricky. Here's how I navigate it. I try my best. This is what I do. But I've also witnessed the remarkable resilience of individuals and their incredible strength found within the community, like Bill Gassiamis from Recovery After Stroke, Jason Lopes and Greg for the AVM Superhero, and Molly from Beyond Stillness. I'm fortunate to have gained much of my cognitive and physical abilities, and I believe That qualifies me to help others in some way survivors haven't yet. That's why I keep going. The stroke survivor community needs advocates, people who will understand the fight, with healthcare teams to returning to work and not being overlooked by the world. I often think of that Will Smith quote. The only thing that I see distinctly different about me is that I'm not afraid to die on the treadmill. I will not be outworked, period. You might have more talent than me, you might be smarter than me, you might be sexier than me, you might have me in all 9 categories. But if we get on a treadmill, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to get off first, or I'm going to die. It's really that simple. I just took that quote by Will Smith and I applied it to my stroke recovery journey. Again, 1,000%. Recovery is tough. There is no map, no straight path, and definitely no shortcuts. Some days it feels like moving forward is impossible. Other days, progress is so slow it's hard to see. But I've learned that every small step counts. That's what keeps me going. Breathing was one of the first things I had to relearn. How to control it, how to use it to calm my mind, how to let it guide me forward when nothing else made sense. Reading Breath by James Nestor genuinely changed my life. I wish I had found it sooner, but I'm glad I found it at all. It helped me understand that something as simple as breathing the right way could change everything. Running came next, something I'd never thought I'd do again after my stroke and MS diagnosis. But here I am, 15,000 miles later, over the course of 2.5 years, proving that recovery isn't about what's supposed to happen, it's about what I decide happens. One thing I've learned for sure, I don't do things half-assed. Never have, never will. If I'm in, I'm all in, 1,000%. Whether it's running, recovering, building survivor science, or being there for my family, I don't just show up, I show up 1,000%. I don't have time to half-ass it. Life's too short to give anything less than everything you've got. That's how I got to where I am today, and that's why I keep pushing forward. I share my story because I know what it feels like to be stuck, to wonder if this is as good as it gets. I've been there, staring at the ceiling, searching for answers. What I've learned is that no one hands you the solution. You have to decide. You have to fight for it. When you go all in, when you give it everything you've got, you find out what you are really capable of. Recovery is a marathon, not a sprint, and it's not something you can half-ass. No one crosses the finish line alone. But if you're going to make it, you've got to give it everything you've got. We keep moving, we keep sharing, and together we prove that impossible is just a word.
Storytelling empowers us to share our experiences in a way that invites others to reflect on their own. In closing, we offer reflection questions as an opportunity to spark dialogue with yourself, friends, family, and fellow stroke survivors. In a moment, I will read questions aloud. You can also find them written in the podcast episode description. Community conversation prompts. What new passion or interest have you discovered since your stroke? And how has your journey inspired others? Thank you for listening to Part 1,
Will Schmierer's story.
Stick with us for Part 2,
Will Schmierer's interview.
Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org. Another way to support is to like, share, or subscribe to our weekly show. Again, thank you for devoting time and space for this week's episode of Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke.
Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke. Will's journey is a powerful reminder that change is possible, one step at a time. His dedication to recovery and helping others proves that resilience is built through action. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, or subscribe and consider donating to Beyond Stillness Stories After Stroke. Remember, as part of the stroke community, you are more than supportive. You are inspirational.